Hello, my name is Bente Horvath, and today I'll be discussing a little bit about Nike's Colin Kaepernick ad. This ad was released on September 3rd, 2018, and when it was released, it sparked a lot of controversy throughout the world. The main message intended in this ad was to inspire others to believe in something, even if that means you have to sacrifice everything else around you. I chose to choose this ad because it sparked a lot of controversy in recent years, and it created a movement. The three ethnic study concepts that I plan to incorporate in this discussion includes racial formation, systemic racism, and racial projects. Racial formation is a socio-historical process by which societies create and transform racial categories through social, economic, and political forces. In other words, racial formation explains how racial categories and the meanings associated with them become a fundamental way of structuring society, influencing everything from individual identity to social institutions like the justice system and healthcare system. This argues that race is a social construct, not a biological reality, and its meaning changes over time through both our large-scale political and institutional actions and everyday individual experiences. Based on the theory of racial formation, Colin Kaepernick's Nike ad describes how racial meanings are produced and transformed through political and cultural struggles. Nike's ad of Colin Kaepernick protests against racial injustice into a marketable narrative. This shows us how corporate interests can go against racial politics based only for commercial purposes. Based on Michael Omi and Howard Winant's theory of racial formation, the Colin Kaepernick ad can be seen as a racial project that sparked intense political divide over the meaning of race in America. This ad features a black athlete protesting a racial injustice, and this shaped a debate that was already a central part of the conversation in America. This shows how race is not a static biological trait. Systematic racism refers to how racial inequality is maintained and reproduced through institutions like policing, education, employment, and social media, or the media, not just through individual acts of racism. In the Colin Kaepernick Nike ad, this concept is powerfully present through the context of Kaepernick's role as a former NFL quarterback who was blacklisted for kneeling during the national anthem to protest police brutality. His protest wasn't just about only individual officers, but about the institutional failure of the justice system to hold these certain police officers accountable for multiple killings of unarmed African Americans or just innocent people in general. By kneeling, Kaepernick called attention to the ways Black communities face police violence, surveillance, and criminalization and discrimination, which are core examples of systemic racism. The ad itself doesn't explicitly show police violence. However, Colin Kaepernick's presence is able to frame the entire message for us and give us a better understanding. His line, "Believe in something even if it means sacrificing everything." This line directly references to how he lost his NFL career for protesting a system of racial oppression. Nike's choice to center him in a mainstream commercial signals a rare moment where a massive corporation acknowledged the cost of speaking out against systemic racism and standing up for yourself and others. This Nike ad also functions as a racial project, a concept from Omi and Winant that refers to how ideas about race are constructed and created and contested through both cultural and political efforts. Racial projects can reinforce and even challenge racial hierarchies. In this case, this ad does both because it challenges systemic racism by uplifting Colin Kaepernick's protest, but it also raises questions about how corporations capitalize on racial social justice movements. On one hand, this ad supports Colin Kaepernick's stance by framing him as a modern-day hero and part of a resistance team. This reframes the dominant narrative of him that painted him as unpatriotic, and it instead celebrates him for standing up against injustice. This is an example of a progressive racial project where the ad redefines how we see the protests and the patriotism, especially in a racialized point of view. But on the other hand, Nike is still a massive corporation that profits from this message no matter what. Many critics argue that this is a corporate co-optation. Now, a corporate co-optation is a strategy where a company absorbs or includes voices, threats, or new members into its structure to mitigate the opposition and maintain control of their views. This makes the ad a contradictory racial project because it uplifts a powerful resistance message and it commodifies the mass consumption. In the end, this ad sparks important questions about who controls the narrative of race and how racial justice messages can be empowering from other people. In conclusion, this Colin Kaepernick Nike ad, it's more than just a commercial. It's a powerful example of how pop culture can reflect, challenge, and complicate the understanding of race in America. By analyzing the ad through the three lenses of systemic racism, racial projects, and racial reformation, we're able to see how Colin Kaepernick's protest called out the injustice and racism, and how Nike was able to portray him as a good person and shaped a larger public conversation about race resistance and taking action and responsibility. This ad shows how ethnic studies concepts help us dig deeper into what the media is really trying to say, or what they're not saying, about identity, power, and social change. It also reminds us that even the biggest platforms can be used to challenge difficult and dominant narratives, sometimes in ways that come with contradictions. Ultimately, looking at this ad through an ethnic study lens reveals that the representation is never neutral. It's always connected through larger systems of power, and when everyone's able to understand that, we can become better equipped on how to challenge these injustices and inequality.